And right now, we want to, yes, just buckle down to discussion and hear from what they had actually spoken of, beginning with Dr. Tim Mwangi, who he gave us some of the pointers that we should take cognizance of when it comes to balancing our life: delegation, training, ethical leadership, faith, community, and also family, which is very big. And if you listen keenly to all our panelists, actually, it all percolates to, the same vein of thought when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to delegation, when it comes to even training, building your professional life. We've just heard from Dr. Njenga finally. But let's just get down to some of these salient points that they've raised this morning. First of all, because if we may peg our thoughts on spirituality, peg our thoughts on professional life, peg our thoughts on the society as well, how do we also put out, our tentacles in all these three areas? Let's just begin with you. First of all, Tim, because I know you have to leave this morning as well. You have a board meeting as well, so we'll release you early. But thanks for coming nonetheless. You talk about delegation, training, ethical leadership, faith, community. What about a person who doesn't believe in God? Right? Where is the place of faith? He talks about spirituality, that you have also to know the scripture. A person who this morning is not subscribing to any scripture or any word, how does he balance his life? Or you believe you are just a matter, so to speak. You're just a body. When you die, there is nothing else after life. So where do we place ourselves? Do you just live for now and do you forget other facets of life?
Thank you, Dibab. Good question. And I think this is an issue that many people struggle with. The truth is that aspect of life, it relates a lot, the whole spiritual, relates to our purpose, relates to our inner sense of being and worth and reason for existence and so on. And that's a question that many people are struggling with today. Why am I here? Is it all about, because again, life has been so programmed for many of us. You're born, you go to school, you work, you retire, Is that all that there is to life? And I think when one is not able to answer that question, usually then they have that gap that's yawning in their own life. There's a saying by a scientist that every one of us has got that God-shaped vacuum, that inner vacuum within us, and cannot be filled by anything else. So what human beings tend to do is to try and fill all kinds of things. Maybe the temporal. Some of the panelists mentioned that. Have something, a bash or something, do something, for the temporal. But it doesn't fulfill that. You are still left with that gap. So I think it's an important thing for our viewers to consider. Do I know my purpose? Do I know where I'm headed? Do I know why I'm here? And I think that begins to help you answer those questions. There are a lot of researches that have been done, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of how spirituality is today enhancing leadership. And in fact, there is no question. I think it was last year's Harvard Business Review that talked about the top performing CEOs around the world were all people with deep spiritual lives. So it's getting acknowledged now. Maybe we have gone full circle. That's why we started. Maybe we have gone full circle. At some point, of course, we bashed it and we thought it's the one part we can leave out for the sense of science and progress. But I think we are back there, recognizing that that's so important for a person who is well anchored in their own life and able to lead others and bring meaning and satisfaction and fulfillment to others as well.
So it seems to us that when you look at life, we have templates.
Yes.
And you're born, you go to school. After school, you get married.
Yeah.
After marriage, of course, you have children. You children. After that, you retire from your work.
Yeah.
And of course, this is where Dr. Mkhwana was coming in very handy on retirement as well. But should we subscribe? Should we follow the structure and the template of life? Why can't we just live our lives with our own templates? Should we follow these particular structures that have been put down, by, I don't know who came up with these structures in the first place. Maybe the philosophers will tell us they've studied this from Socrates and Plato. Who came up with these templates? Right, Tim?
Thank you.
Again, before you go.
Very briefly, the younger people are much better at this, and that's why I talked earlier that for them there's not even a question of work-life balance. It's life in totality. They tend to take life more holistically, unlike those of us who are a bit older, because they've been born, especially those being born in the urban areas and so on. They're not struggling with the basics like maybe we did. For me, going to school was a way of escaping poverty and hard life in the village. So I wanted to get here. But children are being born already in this sense of plenty, and they already have the basics taken care of. So if you threaten them at the workplace and tell them, I'm going to sack you, because, and so on, they're not threatened. They're not going back to the village. They're going to a life, a home with the amenities and TV and internet. So there has to be a bit more than just the physical side of life. That's why finding meaning is very important. And they have found, especially among the millennials, helping them find that sense of inner purpose, inner drive is important to unlocking their potential even at the place of work. That's how come, then finding that enhances performance, enhances good living, and of course the factor that they're able to work with others. Of course, we all live in a social world. So again, yes, you can choose your own way of life, but then you also have to interact with others. So again, do you want to be a social misfit? How do you interact? How do you engage? So that you are meaningfully engaged. And I think Dr. Mukwana talked about that. You don't just wait again to engage at the end of life. It is something that you need to find a way to do that. And I've had to resolve that in my own life. How do I engage as a professional, as a leader, but also somebody who is in my own community? How can I have an authentic relationships with my own community? Because that also adds to the fulfillment of life.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you. I'll release you right now. Thank you for coming. And of course, we shall be engaging more and more with other forums that we'll be having as well. Thank you for showing up this morning. We really do appreciate it. Right, let's hear from Tufosa, because it seems, as we're hearing this morning, that yes, we prepare people for these different facets of life, but after retirement, they find out they are not actually adequately prepared to, life after retirement. That is a huge, huge problem, Dr. Juma Mukwana, as well. You mentioned that. So you find yourself groping around. You don't know what to do. You have all this length of time left, in front of you, but you don't know how to actually apply yourself to the society, because your whole life was circling around, your work. So your work has become your identity.
I think, I want to go back to how I began, to say we must look at life from the end. How do I want my life to end up like? How will it look like? And what would it be composed of? Because when we think about the end from the beginning, it sort of helps you to shape up how you would end up there anyway. But when unfortunately, how many of us approach life is, what will be, will be. So you just take life as it comes. Whereas thinking that I'm actually an architect of my life. Now, as a Christian, I believe God is there and he directs me. But he's also put me as a decision maker for my own life. So I'm actually responsible for my life. How it will end up, a lot of it depends with me. In fact, I am the total sum of the decisions I have made in the past. Therefore, how I will end up at retirement will be the total sum of the decisions I have made, but the ones I'm making from today up to that time. Therefore, I must think, how would I like my life to be? So I must think about it in terms of, one, what is my purpose? It's beyond work. It's beyond my career. What is it that I have been created to contribute to? And what is my contribution? So that as I'm looking back at the totality or at the circle of life, I'm saying, I have been created to do this. And once I identify that purpose, I begin to work towards it. But I must also begin, like Tim has said, and borrowing from everybody else. My life is not just one track. It's made of many tracks. But the other thing about it is that not only is my life not only of many tracks, but it is also of many seasons. And I must live within my season. And that is why I brought in the aspect of, as then I'm making those decisions about the tracks and about the seasons, I must think about short versus long term. I must think about temporary versus permanent. And I must think about pleasure versus principles. Because when I put these things together, then I'm beginning to say I must make the total sum of my decisions must be that which will count and I'll be proud of. So I think it's multifaceted, if you like.
It is multifaceted. I agree with you. So you have all these tracks that is a consummation of life.
Yes.
Then they always say pleasure also is very important in life as well, because they say if you don't plan for if you don't plan for your pleasure,
Yes.
of course the pain will just plan by itself. So that one is a default. Pain will always obviously come into your life, but you need to plan for your pleasures as well. So, but looking at the long term, how then do we get to prepare our people for retirement, right? You know, the sunset years. Many of them are grappling. They wonder, so what do I do next? Is this just to enjoy my pension? Go to the Bahamas? Is this what life is all about? And who came up with the retirement age as well, right? Because we've been given that 70 years that you say is in the Bible, and the bonus of it as well. If you're 180 or going above, that is a bonus. But from the current structure of a society, do you think we should retire? Should we retire? And what does retirement mean? Should we be qualified from the National Kenya Qualifications Authority for retirement? Maybe you're setting up a curriculum on that as well.
I think what I would say when we think about balance, one of the things I think that has come out of this conversation is that there's the new normal. What we have seen is that what was a balance in 1970, 1980 is not the balance in 2019. So things are changing. I think that's what we agree, that what we consider to be a balanced life, work, social, is really changing. And what it also then means, the implication is then we must re-engineer ourselves for this new normal. And to re-engineer ourselves, I think the question then is if the workplace is changing, and that's where I started, is our training then changing to give us the new skills that we need in the new workplace? Is the workplace itself changing to give us this kind of the new normal? And so what it means is that we must equip ourselves differently, both as workers and as workplaces and as homes, because then this is the reality that is happening. And as I've indicated here, we must bring more of the home into the workplace. But we must also bring, if you look at it, the boundary between work and home is really dying away in this era of internet. And so we need flexible work schedules. As you said, who said we must work from 8 to 5? People are working. I know that things are, and
as long as you're meeting your deadlines,
but the bottom line that I started with is, in all this work, social interaction, what is the purpose? Because my belief, and we've talked about spirituality here, is that for each one of us, God had a purpose for which you were made. And so my belief is that you were made because there was something that you needed to contribute to society, to the life of others. And so until you find that purpose, then you see all the work and all the interactions are then in vain. And so how do you find the purpose for which God brought you to this world? And I think that is a more difficult, complicated question, which we must search for as individuals, because we all have a different purpose. There is something that you really must do before you leave, and the question is, what is it? And that is not a question that we can answer here. But everybody, looking at the social, the technical, and everything else that you have, you really have to define what is it that I am meant to achieve. What is it that, what difference will I bring? Because we are part of a whole. And this whole is that each one of us has different skills and different talents that we must bring to bear for the benefit of others. And I think that is a question that, and so as we dance to the music of life, the question is, are we fulfilling the purpose for which we were created? Are we remaining relevant in this changing work-life balance? And I think those are questions that really are more individual than the crowd. That's the way I would put it.
All right, thank you. And Rev. Geoffrey, you raise an important point as well, because also it seems in this particular wheel of life, romance also is the one which is really suffering when it comes to, balancing the wheel as well.
Right.
Many of the viewers we've been watching this morning may attest to this fact that they feel that at least they're walking through, or they're going through a dry spell as far as, their love is concerned in the family, which is it's a pivotal, aspect of gluing up or the family together. But they feel maybe our lives have become so lopsided. We are always navel-gazing on work. It is work. We carry the laptops at home. We're on phone all the time. And it's business trips all the time. We are globe-trotting around, but we are not focusing on the family. Then how do we, for that particular person who's feeling that at least that particular aspect is out of kilter, then how do we rectify that? How do we reconfigure it sort of recalibrate it?
Well, in this world of vain competition and wanting to grab everything there is, we have allowed ourselves to fight to conquer. And that has permeated in every segment of our lives. I go through school to conquer, get certificates, and I'm out of there. I didn't have any interest in intellectual things. I just wanted to get certificates. I get into business to make money. I make money even when it is of no value or purpose. I want to make it anyway because I have been trained to conquer and to grab. I talked about scarcity mentality. If another person gets it, I have lost. Now, this romance thing begins to go the same path, that I must get a wife. I will do everything I can to get a husband. Once I achieve that, I conquer. I park that at home. There are other things to do. If you don't plan for that life that you have conquered, that person that you have brought into your life, you will be like two cars parked in a garage at some point. Two cars parked in a garage don't touch for any reason at all. So there ought to be a planning, a purposeful engagement, and bringing in the balance. I have heard a lot here about God and his purpose for my life. Now, some people struggle with this element of God. The fact that you struggle with the issue of whether God exists or not does not in any way mean he doesn't. I think the struggle is on your side. The struggle is not on God's side. And discovering God is not necessarily going to church. God has revealed himself in many different ways if we care to listen. So we need to bring the structure and order even in our marriage life by purposely planning for the things that will happen, because if you don't plan, you plan to fail. If you don't plan to succeed, you plan to fail. And therefore, there is a great need in managing, in planning for it. Move away from this conquer and victory thing, but accept that that aspect of life needs planning as well. Another thing that has been talked about is this retirement. I get very worried about retirement in this country because retirement is associated with death. If you tell anybody you have retired, they know that you're going to die. And you know what? To a large extent, it is true. Because you, and Mkwana is talking about it, you spent all your life in the place of work, and that's all the life there was. And then suddenly, that rejects you when you retire, and you move on to nothingness. And within a very short time, people who retire die. What do I say about this? Our life needs to be organized, but we need to accept the phases of life. As a believer in God, I believe God can use you in any phase of your life. We are told that Abraham got his son when he was 100 years old. I don't think, Diba, you are anywhere near that. But I'm not even in any way suggesting you need a son. I'm only saying that that's when he got his son. So don't go there. And there was a man called Abraham, called Moses. He got the greatest job on earth at that point, the great rescue mission, when he was 80. And I try and encourage people to understand God can use you at any stage in life. But we need to be orderly, we need to be organized, and live the phase to the fullest. To me, retirement is changing job location and go and do something else. Perhaps not with much energy, but still something that can be very, very useful and very fulfilling.
Thank you. And that transition, they normally say this is from success to significance.
Yes.
That after amassing all this success, then again you find there's a hole that you're talking about.
That's right.
That it has not really quenched that particular thirst, and there's something you're looking forward to satiate that particular, thirst that is, that you want to select that thirst that is deep within you. So from success to significance. Significance is where also you're looking deeply inside you, and you talked about spirituality, where you really struggle on this. You mentioned this is where the will, the emotion is. How do we then uncouple? Where is the soul in this? What is matter and body, right? Am I just, can we uncouple matter from body? The philosopher, Dr. George?
First of all, let me wish you good morning. Yes, they have been talking about it. I mean, I've had things like you are given 70 years. That's what my reverend brother here was telling me, 70 years. But the way I see it is this. Yesterday I had to condole with my brother whose young son has died, tender. And I had to condole with, at the same time, the mother of one of my workmates who has died at the tender age of 69. She didn't reach 70. And I was thinking that my life could go. Deba, my life could go anytime. Now, assume that we take that as the principle of soul and matter. That at one moment, I will die. So what's the difference between that? It's soul and matter. Soul, ours is spiritual, not like that of animals and plants.
Yes.
So ours is spiritual. That means it demands to understand what is the purpose and to make purposeful our work. That is why it's spiritual. For an animal, it lives to subsist, to be healthy, to subsist, and that's it, and it dies. It doesn't make houses, it doesn't think about this child, it doesn't think about nuclear science, no. It just lives to survive and to nourish its body. Now, therefore, there must have been something living before the death. And with that, I stop there because the rest will be too philosophical. So now let me let me go to what is inside that soul, because that's the only thing that really matters when you die. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how many buildings you have, how many beds and cars you have, how many shoes you have. It matters a little bit what love you have put in your wife, what love you have put in your children, what love you have put for those brothers and sisters whom you've worked all your life for. That's the only thing you can possess. And that's what we refer to as legacy, that you need to understand. Legacy is about what you give, and give to your children, to your wife or husband, to your friends, but also to your great-grandchildren. Great men and women leave things for 200 to 500 years. That's why we read history. We don't read history of our country. If we read the history of our country, we would start thinking, what have our brothers and sisters left us? Okay, they fought for our independence. Well, what did they leave us after the independence struggle? Well, those who fought were put aside. Those who were studying while the rest were fighting are the ones who took over. What have they left us for the last 60 years of the so-called Kenya? You think about that, because we need some legacy. And I think there are some beautiful things and some things that hurt us deeply, very deeply. Listen, you need, as they have said, to know the will of God for you. Because that's the only thing truly you can possess, the one that gives meaning. If you don't want God, at least put meaning in something else. If you want to put it in a cow, in a dog, in a house, at least put meaning. If you want to put it in your own self, that is to turn yourself into a God, well, do it. The only problem with those things is that life has taught us that they are rather empty. Then struggle. Overcome the barrier between what you see is great today if you die and that which you need to achieve. In other words, take care of your family. Work hard. That means study. Make a big effort to study in whatever circumstance you are. But that study is useless if you can't put it into practice in work. Get money, but money is for the things of those you love. Share it with yourself and with others. Share it. Don't keep it, because if you die, you can't. I had somebody died in the US and was asked to bury, he asked in his will to be buried with his cars inside the grave. Okay, good. Okay. We will bury you with your cars and your houses and your money and your bank account and your credit card. If it will add anything to your life, we will do it. But really, that is far much more useless than having helped a poor person. Go out of yourself, if you have more, to rescue your brother and sister who had a misfortune which you don't have. This is working for others in society. But don't tell me you're working for the Somalis in Somaliland or or the Turkish in Turkey or Syrians when you are not taking care of your wife and your brothers and sisters in the community you live. Because that would be a lack of balance in life. Starting with the farthest things rather than things that God has, the neighbor next to you, your brothers and sisters. So what is your signature in this life? Don't worry. There is nothing called balance. At the end of the day, it's what you have done. And if you want to do many things, you need to balance.
But you said there's nothing like a balance again.
Because really there is nothing like a balance. When you die, there is no measure. The only balance there, if you want as a Christian, is whether you did many good things vis-a-vis bad or whether you are totally bad vis-a-vis good.
What about a person who chuckles and say that, okay, he's chuckling this morning and we're saying, oh, study hard, yeah, apply yourself and then you get a job. But in this country, the reality is on the ground. You have, you know, your first class honors, yeah, in some...
The reality in this world is something you said before, that sometimes we think the world prepares for us a place. The world doesn't prepare for us a place. The only place the world has prepared for us, and thanks be to it, is our mother's womb. But the moment we leave our mother's womb, the brothers and sisters take care of us, but the rest is ourselves. This has to be very clear. Now, you don't, if you're given lemon, make lemon juice. Don't tell me that I'll give you an example. I have a young man who I was sent because of a good ambassador who saw him. This young man was born in the greatest poverty in Busia. The greatest poverty. Part of it is the lack of fulfillment of life of some husbands who leave their wives because of the difficulties. So the husband left this woman with 6 children. Now, this woman doesn't even know where to begin. However, anyway, she managed. She lived her life the way she was given by God. Now, this young man was a watchman. I took this young man and started asking him questions. And guess what? In all those things, this kid got an A. The mother managed to send this kid to Maseno. My mother didn't have money to pay. What happened in life? People gave him a scholarship. Now he's a watchman with an A and a Bachelor of Commerce somewhere else. I won't say where. But a watchman, because he couldn't get a job. As a watchman, he took his brothers and brought them home and started helping them with the little money he has. And I can say that of 1,000,001 Kenyans and other people in the rest of the world. Make use of what you have. Now that I was told to come into his life, I'm trying to see, can we make his life a bit better and more useful? But he's lived his life. If he dies today, he wouldn't say that, oh no, life didn't give me a cake, gave me lemons. No, he has done his job. And those mothers who are fighting every day to make their life happen because of their children, because husbands, I'm afraid we have to do a lot of work.
Thank you.
We lack balance.
Right. So let's hear from Trufi as well. Life does not really owe us a living, in essence.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we come with this mentality that our brothers, they have to help us. Even our aging parents, we have to help them. But in reality is, how did you prepare your life? Is it because now you're actually pegging and milking your children right now, so to speak, because you feel they have to take good care of you? But in essence, you did not prepare yourself, right? That's the reality on the ground. If we look at other, of course, cultures as well. I don't know what will be input.
Yeah, so I like what Dr. Njenga has just mentioned about thinking about it in terms of legacy, which for me goes back to what I was saying, the circle of life. What are you giving back? Because great fulfillment, by the way, if you read throughout history is always about people who gave back. There is no great fulfillment when you hoard. And that for me is a real problem, to digress a bit, with the leadership in our nation. It just looks like we are always hoarding. It looks like it's always about this person who needs to amass this a big amount of wealth, but never giving back. And so I'll do everything to get, but nothing to give. I think it is about giving back. So that we need to be able to condition ourselves and to begin to think from a very young age, how do I live my life in great fulfillment? And how do I get that great fulfillment? Great fulfillment is by giving back. And how do I give back my best? How do I give back my best? So if I look at myself now, first of all, I'm married to a wonderful man. How do I give myself as the best wife he can ever have for the time that I have as his wife? Then I have 3 beautiful children. How can I be the best mother for my 3 children at their different ages and their different personalities? Then I have wonderful parents and siblings and in-laws. How can I be the best to them? How can I be the best worker, employee? I'm employed somewhere. So how can I be the best employee? I may not be the perfect, I'm not looking for perfection, but how can I be the best within the limitations that I have? How can I be the best citizen of this county? I live in Nairobi County. How can I be the best citizen? How can I be the best citizen of our nation, Kenya? How can I be the best global citizen? Then I look at my other roles. I'm a student. I'm Dr. Njenga's student. How can I be the best student while I'm there? And there are limitations. I'm not saying I'm an A student. I'm not. I'm just saying that within my limitations, how can I be the best? Then I play other things. I'm here today. How can I be the best to give something back to those who are listening to us and to our panelists?
But
How
what
can we
about
be
that
the
person
best?
who's feeling embittered about life itself? You know, you're trying to actually talk, but you find there is this particular scar within you and it's festering, and you're feeling you're so embittered about life. Things just maybe took another turn altogether. Things were going very, seamlessly flowing along the way, but it took off on another tangent altogether, and you're bitter because you cannot get back to where you were. So you're actually reflective all the time of where your life was then, right? That is a will which is out of balance, so to speak.
And that's true. So I'm not a philosopher, but I think Socrates said that a life unexamined is not worth living. So if I examine my life and find I'm in a place of bitterness, what I'm giving out is bitterness. Is that the best? No. So I must go back and say, how can I live my life best, even though life has given me sour grapes? How can I turn this into wine? How can I make it best, even though I was given a raw deal? And we have numerous examples that we can give of people who have been thrown the worst, but have taken it, turned around, and have become the best.
Right.
Life is not fair.
Yep.
And it is never going to be fair, but you're going to make it worth it.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Juma, because you concentrated mostly on in the workplace, right? And we want to find out in the workplace. Yeah, also embittered employees, people who feel like life has not been fair within the workplace for them as well.
Picking up from where Trufena has left, I think
Trufosa.
that Trufosa, sorry. It seems like for many of us, we end up living life like we are chasing the wind, because this balance that we are looking at is a moving target. And I look at the words of black liberation hero in the US, Jackson, who said, he has been to the mountaintop and he has seen the promised land.
That's
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, sorry. Yes. But when you reach the mountaintop, you see more hills and more mountains. So I think the irony of life is that we are chasing the wind sometimes. And the target is a moving target. And so when you reach the top, when you think you have reached what you needed in your marriage, then you see a vacuum in your social life. When you think you have fixed the gap that you had in your social life, then you have something else to deal with children or the workplace. And so there are many more hills that you have to cover, and we never know how many those hills are. And so the idea then is, how resilient are we, first of all, to surmount all these hills and mountains, so that at the end of the day, I go back to what I said, that nobody has promised us that this life will be, as I always tell people, life is a journey. And when you go for a journey on a road, there's no road that is just straight. The road will have hills, it will have valleys, and it will have places where you'll climb, and it will have sharp corners. And you have to navigate all these hills and valleys and sharp corners, and one, still remain yourself, still remain in control, still remain focused, still remain enthusiastic, still remain somebody that society can count upon. And that is not very easy, because, as I said, we are chasing a moving target. And so, but in this whole scenario, then certain things come up. One, that because we don't know about the uncertainty of our journey, we must be willing to adapt. We must be willing to learn. So when things change, we don't say, this is how my grandfather used to do it. And so we must be willing to be different, because sometimes what has worked for Reverend Jenga will not work for me. So I cannot say, because he used this route, and it seems, and you see what we call success, Dipal, is a marriage. What is success? Because what is success to her will not be success to me. And so, because this is, and that's why I said sometimes we end up chasing the wind. And so in this confusion and in these many hills that we have to surmount to find purpose, the question then is, how will I survive? How will I adopt? How will I learn? So that at the end of the day, I am still able to deliver on the promises for which I was created, because there was a purpose. And so it's a fairly difficult scenario, but that's the way I would put it. And so when I am gone, what was it that you remember me for? When I have, and not just gone in terms of death, if I am a family person, what is it that my family will remember me for? Right. If I'm in a workplace, and we all change workplaces, and I leave a workplace, what impact have I made? What is it that people will remember me? When you leave a workplace, what do people say about you? Do they miss you? Do they say that was good riddance? And so as you move from one hill to another, you make impact. Some of it will be positive, some of it will be negative, but at the end of the day, what is it that we'll remember you for? And for me, that is very, very important.
All right, thank you. We are talking about also labor, and I remember is it the Rockefeller's credo that says, I believe in the dignity of labor, whether with head or with hand, that life owes no one living, but it owes every man an opportunity to make a living. And when we say life is unfair, but we still look, there's so many people who are feeling that they're not given an opportunity to make a living, right? Yes, it's true, life does not owe us a living, but the opportunity to make a living, I mean, that is a sole right for every man. So when we come and we look on that particular tunnel and we see this wheel that we're talking about this morning, that you have your life, but you cannot actually even have that opportunity of making a living. How will you say, I mean, how does it dignify your labor? Because at the end of the day, you know, having poverty is undignifying at the end of the day for so many people. Rev.
Well, that's an important point about creating opportunities for other people. And the leadership of this country is indicted for wanting to grab and hoard. I think the greatest thing that has happened, or that could happen in this country, was devolution, and it has happened in putting money out there in mashinani, and therefore I think in this country we do have a chance, and if we really wanted to create opportunities for other people, we really have no excuse. Especially as a leader, I ought to be clearly and completely convinced that the role of my leadership is to create opportunities for other people, and so that people can live in dignity. There's no reason. I mean, this country has so much money.
Yes.
We have so much resources. Countries which don't have as much as we do have made great strides in creating opportunities for their citizenry, and therefore I would say every leader, we need to create opportunity, whether that is in my home, people working for me, whether I am in the office working for a corporation. I need to see it as the opportunity to create opportunity. I mean, the chance to create opportunities for other people. But having said that, I want to come back to the point that has been made, that life is not fair. Yes, indeed, it is not. And that nobody owes you anything anyway. I think God has given us brains. God will give me a chance if nobody else does. He will give me a chance, and He has given me resources that I can use. I think we have a generation in this country of people who are suffering from this sense of entitlement. That they want because someone else has. They want what the father has, what the mother has, what the home has. And therefore, we have crippled a generation by not telling them to go out there, or helping them to go out there and use their God-given brains to create opportunities for themselves. I have seen a great evil. In my work as a mediator, I have been doing a lot in the family business. And the family business in this country is in trouble because the parents worked very hard, and then you have a bunch of kids who have this sense of entitlement. They don't want to work in the business, they want the money. And as soon as the father dies, they rush to court. And you have seen, you can count very many prominent families, they rush to court and they get destroyed there because the court will not give them what they are looking for. But what they are looking for is to get the material resources which they didn't work for, and which basically they feel entitled to, not to come and tend the business, but to use the money. It's a great problem there.
But you talked of the good book. The good book says that a good man will leave inheritance.
Yes, that's true.
For his children's children.
Yes, for his children's children.
Yeah, and,
yes.
and the wealth of the sinners will be claimed by the righteous.
I can see you're getting there.
Yeah.
I knew you would at some point.
Yes. So the question is, then again, is it because there was lack of preparation from a good man to leave an inheritance for his children? Because when you're talking about giving back, what are we really giving back at the end of our lives?
Yes.
Yeah, from the workplace. Are we
Yes.
coming out with an empty pail to our children?
Yes.
Right? So they have a disadvantage on how also they're starting off from their lives, right? How many parents even prepare or have trust for their children, you know, thinking ahead? Or, again, when you're talking about opportunity that life will give you to make a living, right? And you're actually living from hand to mouth, then how do you prepare even for your children's, future in the long run?
I would not comment.
And that's a bigger question.
I will not comment about those who don't have resources. I'm concerned about those who do, and you talked about preparing the children to take over.
But there's so many people out there who have, the goodwill to give the best to their family, to their children. But at the end of the day, they lack. They say, where do I actually have the resources to distribute
and I
give them a good life?
And I say it so, that our leadership ought to create opportunities for everybody in the society to live a decent life. It's not that we don't have resources in this country, but we are too selfish.
Right.
We are too self-absorbed. It is me, myself, and I. The me generation is here with us. And particularly with our leaders, they want everything for themselves. So I see the need there to create opportunities for people wherever I might be. In every strata of society, we create opportunities for other people. Those who have made resources, and I'm addressing parents, help your children to connect with the business, not with the money. our children connect with the money in the business, and therefore they know that there is money in that business but they've never connected with the business.
Right. Let's hear from Dr.
Be humble, Debal. You see, in life, our mind desires many things. It desires the 3 G's. If you are a man, the 3 G's are glory, which usually is the last one. If you are a man, girls, and great wealth. So power, 3 G's. You want these things. If you have this nice girl who is now your wife, you want the other one across the center there. Or you wanted to do something beautiful for the people in your office, but you want them to love you instead. Or the things go wrong. Be humble. Start again. Doing good. So what you have is not things, it is life. So I hear very many times, oh, you know, I've been born in poverty. What do you mean you have been born in poverty? Real poverty is you are born without legs, without a helping hand, with a deformed brain. Real poverty is when you have nothing in your hands for which to work. But I see people with eyes, with ears, with a healthy mouth, with a healthy body, with strong legs and flesh, and they tell me they are poor. No, get out and work. My colleague Vincent Ogutu, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor designate, a deep friend of mine, always says, find a task that has your name in it, there where you are. Don't start thinking of driving Mercedes Benzes and working as the accountant and working as the nurse. Right there, if it is collecting garbage in the environment, start collecting garbage. Except that you have to escape the Nairobi City Council, which loves garbage there where you are. Garbage everywhere. Anyway, do not hold your heart in your hands. That means that when you're working, I love that story that was in the newspaper or making its run in social media about the only guy who made KQ function was Philip Ndegwa. Who is late Philip Ndegwa, a recluse in life in many ways, not the normal type of guy you find in Kenya, but he transformed KQ. Why is this leadership? Okay, I'm not asking you go to that extent, but I'm asking you that don't do things so that you can be told thank you.
Extent of being what, a recluse?
Except being a recluse. You know, a recluse is a person who doesn't really want any relationship or emotional attachment to the things and the people around him or her. Those are the recluses, okay? But in general, get a task that has your name on it. For those who are leaders today, remember just one thing. This is our family. This is our country. These are our most beautiful people around us, our most beautiful, precious gift. You don't know what we have been given here in Africa. You just have to leave Africa, go elsewhere in the world, and you just can't understand the beauty and paradise we have. But what we are doing is we are killing it in the altar of selfishness. It has been said. Anyway, go out there, work very hard. Be humble. Start again, always. But when you're doing all these things, let me say one thing that is most difficult. Don't do it for your country. Don't do it for your wife. Don't do it for your children. Don't do it for society. Do it for God. Because you may go doing it for all these people and really loving them so that they may love you back and give you in return. Then at the end of the day, you are just looking for selfish things.
Thank you very much. 10 seconds, closing remarks. Trophy, 10 seconds.
We all suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out. But the solution and the medicine for FOMO is to give back to the circle of life. Life does not owe you, but you owe life. Give it your best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Juma Mkhwana?
I think I'll start it where Reverend left it. We all have this issue of me, I, and myself. And I think it is, the Bible says, I will trust you with bigger things if you can deliver on the small things that I've given you. If you can't do the small things, how would you do the bigger ones? This country, And this continent is full of good potential, human resources, minerals, oil. What we are lacking are people that can harness this energy, that can put all these things together for the benefit of the people of this continent.
Thank you.
And I think that is my part.
Right. Rev, 10 seconds.
Two things. One, every leader ought to remember you have that position so that you can create opportunities for other people. That is very central in my heart. Secondly, accept the phase of your life, where you are, and do the very best you can. And indeed, God can use you in every phase of life and surprise you by the things he can achieve through you.
Right. Right. Lastly, 10 seconds.
In everything you do that you have before your eyes, do it with a lot of love. Put everything there, no matter what it is, but do it well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We really thank you, our panelists this morning. What a way to end the show. Thank you so much. You can see also reactions on Twitter. I shall read them. It's not really reflecting on my TriCaster, so I'll just read it here. The debate today is really great. This is what Kim Irungu is saying. We as youth need to know how to balance the wheel of life, especially due to high unemployment rate in Kenya. Also, we have, this is Governor The Dreamer saying, ultimately leadership is not about glorious crowning acts. It's about keeping your team focused on a goal and motivated to do their best to achieve it, especially when the stakes are high and the consequences really matter. We have also Anthony. Anthony was giving us the Eisenhower matrix, helping in deciding what's important and urgent, and helps in delegating and prioritizing, or priority management, helping in achieving the most from the little time we have. We can't be able to see that because it's not reflecting, but if you can just look at the Eisenhower matrix, maybe also that will help you on how to balance your life. And Kenneth Kurugat saying, good morning. It requires proper planning, getting to work and working on goals ranging from family and general thriving. Avoiding stress and having passion in what we do is crucial. Self-awareness is key moving forward. I'm almost there, Mike. And we have also, I think that's it. There are a lot of them, but they're not coming up on my laptop. But that's it. Thank you very much. Remember, Jack Swindoll says this: wherever you are, be there. So wherever you'll be today, be there.